There are mornings that arrive too quietly, when the world feels like it's waiting for something to break. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe, only warns. I sat in that silence watching the first light slide across the lake. The water was still silver as glass, the air sharp with pine and memory. Somewhere beneath it all, I could feel the hum of an old truth, restless and near. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked once, loud enough to remind me I was still here. That's when I realized how long it had been since anyone called this early. Too long. You spend a lifetime building distance from your mistakes, convincing yourself the past is too far gone to find its way back. But distance is only a story we tell ourselves. When the phone finally rang, the sound didn't startle me. It confirmed what I already knew. Something was coming. And by the time I reached for it, I wasn't thinking about who might be on the other end. Only about what was left of me when the quiet finally ended. The morning air carried the scent of lake water and cold pine. I had just poured a second cup of coffee when the phone began to ring. Its sound cut through the quiet, steady, and unfamiliar. No one called this early unless they had something heavy to say. I hesitated, letting it ring twice. On the third, I answered. It was Ethan. His voice was rough, calm, but there was a tired edge to it. I hadn't heard that voice in a year. Not since the last time we spoke, when every word between us sounded like a door closing. He didn't ask how I was or if I was still living by the lake. He only said he needed advice. Not money, not help, just advice. From someone who, in his words, had made more mistakes than he had time to. For a moment, I didn't say anything. His words were heavier than they sounded. There was no anger, no accusation, only the kind of honesty that comes when a man runs out of excuses. I told him to pick a place. He said quietly, "The old diner by the harbor. Chicago. Noon tomorrow." Before I could reply, the line went dead. I stood there holding the phone, feeling the weight of it in my hand. My fingers trembled slightly. Age does that to a man, or maybe regret does. Outside, the fog rolled in from the lake, soft and slow, the kind Linda used to call forgiving weather. She said fog made even broken things look whole again. I never argued with her. I put the cup down and glanced toward her photograph on the counter. The light caught the edge of the frame, turning her smile into something almost alive. I could still hear her voice in my head, gentle, but certain. "What are you afraid of, John?" I didn't have an answer then. I still didn't. The phone buzzed again. A voicemail. It was Raymond, my attorney in Chicago. His voice sounded tight, controlled. "John, the Halford Foundation is being reviewed by the Attorney General's office. Call me before noon." I let the message end. The name of that foundation had become something I avoided saying out loud. It carried too many ghosts. Linda's dream, Ethan's work, and my guilt, holding it all together. The cabin felt smaller suddenly, like the air itself remembered what I had done. I reached for my coat and stepped outside. The wood under my boots creaked, the lake brushed quietly against the dock. Across the water, a ship's horn sounded long and low. It reminded me that everything moves on, even when you don't. I stood there a moment, hands deep in my pockets, staring at the gray water. I thought about Ethan's voice, how calm he sounded. Not angry this time. Not lost. Just steady, like a man who had already made a decision. I wondered what had pushed him to call now, after a year of silence. Maybe something had changed. Maybe someone had. The drive to Chicago would take 4 hours if the roads stayed clear. I knew them well, every turn and stretch of highway between this quiet cabin and the city that had built and broken me. Those roads carry memories like they carry dust, thin quiet, and impossible to shake off. The last time we'd spoken after Linda's funeral, he'd accused me of using her legacy to clean my conscience. You built that foundation for yourself, not for her. I hadn't defended myself. Not because he was right, but because defending yourself to your son is the loneliest kind of losing. But this call felt different. He didn't want to fight. He wanted something else, though I couldn't name it yet. Maybe forgiveness, maybe truth. I walked back inside, picked up my car keys, and slipped Linda's photo into my jacket pocket. Old habits die quietly. On the counter, the coffee had gone cold. I took a sip anyway. It tasted bitter familiar, like something unfinished. As I stood by the door, I looked back once more at the cabin. It had been my shelter for years, but at that moment it felt like a confession booth still waiting for someone to speak. I stepped out into the fog. The road to Chicago was waiting slick with mist and memories. The truck engine coughed before it caught humming low like a heartbeat. Driving south, I watched the sky lighten in slow motion. The fog began to thin near the fields, revealing the faintest trace of dawn. For a moment, I imagined Linda sitting beside me, quiet, watching the same horizon. By the time the city skyline appeared in the distance, the weight in my chest had settled. Whatever waited at that diner tomorrow wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about something harder, cleaner truth. The kind that didn't save anyone, but stopped the bleeding. I tightened my grip on the wheel. There would be no winners this time, just two men bound by blood and silence standing face to face with what neither could change. And somewhere in that truth, maybe we'd find what we'd both been running from. Snow began falling as I reached the city, soft flakes floating in the glow of the streetlights. Chicago always looked cleaner in the snow, as if it was trying to cover its own mistakes. I parked across from the diner and sat in silence, letting the engine hum beneath me. Inside the diner was exactly as I remembered. The smell of burnt coffee, the hiss of the griddle, the same country song playing faintly through static. Years hadn't changed it, only the faces. The window by the harbor was still fogged by breath and steam. That was where Ethan waited. He looked up as I entered. He didn't smile, didn't stand right away, just studied me like a man trying to remember something he used to know. I walked over, and we sat across from each other, without a word. The waitress poured coffee without asking. She smiled polite and practiced the kind of smile that belongs to someone who has seen too many quiet arguments. Ethan spoke first. I left the foundation. The words hung there. I nodded slowly, unsure whether it was confession or warning. They reopened the audit, he said, keeping his eyes on the window. Claire's name came up. For a second, the room tilted. Her name carried years with it, a whole other life I'd locked away. I asked as evenly as I could what she had to do with it. He explained that funds had moved into a secondary account under her management. The numbers didn't add up. It looked like theft. My hand tightened around the coffee cup. Were you involved? Not directly, but I let it happen. He said it quietly, and the honesty stung more than a lie ever could. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the glass. The snow came harder now, thick and deliberate the way it falls when it means to stay. She isn't built for this, I said. She never was. He looked down. That's why I called you. I studied him for a moment, trying to see the boy I used to know. The one who asked me once what made a man good. He wasn't there anymore. What sat across from me now was something harder, quieter, worn by choices. You could have called anyone. He met my eyes. I didn't want anyone else. The words hit deeper than I expected. For a man who's lived long enough, regret starts to sound a lot like love. He stirred his coffee, though it didn't need stirring. I don't know what's right anymore. Sometimes right doesn't matter as much as owning what's wrong. He gave a faint smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Maybe that's what scares me. The waitress walked past again, her shoes squeaking against the floor. The scent of fried eggs and cheap syrup drifted through the air, oddly comforting. When he spoke again, his voice was almost a whisper. They'll go after Claire first. She signed the papers. How much? Enough to destroy her. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that fills the lungs instead of air. He didn't look at me. You always said the truth fixes things. I remembered saying that once before I learned what truth can cost. He went on. But what if the truth just buries us deeper? Then at least it buries us honest. He nodded, though his jaw tightened. I thought of Linda then, her picture on the counter by the lake, her steady belief that goodness was still worth fighting for even when it lost. She would have known what to tell him. I didn't. Instead, I watched him stare through the window, the snow reflecting on his face like fractured light. He looked so much like me, it hurt. The same stillness, the same weight. I saw myself the way I once looked at my own father right before I stopped forgiving him. When he spoke again, it was soft, but certain. Maybe I'm turning into you. I let the words settle the way you let pain find its place before it fades. Maybe I said, but you still have time to turn away. He nodded, eyes fixed on the harbor, where faint lights glimmered through the storm. The waitress left the check on the table and didn't wait for it to be paid. When we finally stood, the booth creaked and the cold air rushed in through the door. Outside, the snow muffled the city. It was quiet, almost holy. He pulled his coat tighter. I'll fix it, he said, not as a promise, but a sentence. I didn't answer. Some truths don't need to be spoken twice. He turned and walked toward his car. I watched his shape fade into the white one step, then another, until he was gone. I stood there longer than I should have, my breath rising in thin clouds. Inside the diner, lights glowed against the falling snow, warm and soft, like forgiveness waiting at a distance. Through the glass, I caught my reflection, older-lined but still carrying the same sins. And for a brief moment in the light of that window, I saw Ethan's face overlap mine. The resemblance wasn't just in bone or age, it was in the silence. I turned away, brushed the snow off my coat, and walked back to the truck. The wind carried the faint sound of water breaking against the docks. I started the engine and looked once more at the diner before pulling into the road. Tomorrow I would call Raymond. But for now, I let the snow fall and the city fade, the world gone quiet, except for the sound of my own breathing. Somewhere behind me that diner window still glowed, and for a fleeting second, it looked like mercy. Snow began falling as I reached the city, soft flakes floating in the glow of the streetlights. Chicago always looked cleaner in the snow, as if it was trying to cover its own mistakes. I parked across from the diner and sat in silence, letting the engine hum beneath me. Inside the diner was exactly as I remembered. The smell of burnt coffee, the hiss of the griddle, the same country song playing faintly through static. Years hadn't changed it, only the faces. The window by the harbor was still fogged by breath and steam. That was where Ethan waited. He looked up as I entered. He didn't smile, didn't stand right away, just studied me like a man trying to remember something he used to know. I walked over, and we sat across from each other without a word. The waitress poured coffee without asking. She smiled polite, and practiced the kind of smile that belongs to someone who has seen too many quiet arguments. Ethan spoke first. I left the foundation. The words hung there. I nodded slowly, unsure whether it was confession or warning. They reopened the audit, he said, keeping his eyes on the window. Claire's name came up. For a second, the room tilted. Her name carried years with it, a whole other life I'd locked away. I asked as evenly as I could what she had to do with it. He explained that funds had moved into a secondary account under her management. The numbers didn't add up. It looked like theft. My hand tightened around the coffee cup. Were you involved? Not directly, but I let it happen. He said it quietly, and the honesty stung more than a lie ever could. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the glass. The snow came harder now, thick and deliberate the way it falls when it means to stay. She isn't built for this, I said. She never was. He looked down. That's why I called you. I studied him for a moment, trying to see the boy I used to know, the one who asked me once what made a man good. He wasn't there anymore. What sat across from me now was something harder, quieter, worn by choices. You could have called anyone. He met my eyes. I didn't want anyone else. The words hit deeper than I expected. For a man who's lived long enough, regret starts to sound a lot like love. He stirred his coffee, though it didn't need stirring. I don't know what's right anymore. Sometimes right doesn't matter as much as owning what's wrong. He gave a faint smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Maybe that's what scares me. The waitress walked past again, her shoes squeaking against the floor. The scent of fried eggs and cheap syrup drifted through the air, oddly comforting. When he spoke again, his voice was almost a whisper. They'll go after Claire first. She signed the papers. How much? Enough to destroy her. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that fills the lungs instead of air. He didn't look at me. You always said the truth fixes things. I remembered saying that once before I learned what truth can cost. He went on. But what if the truth just buries us deeper? Then at least it buries us honest. He nodded, though his jaw tightened. I thought of Linda then, her picture on the counter by the lake, her steady belief that goodness was still worth fighting for even when it lost. She would have known what to tell him. I didn't. Instead, I watched him stare through the window, the snow reflecting on his face like fractured light. He looked so much like me it hurt. The same stillness, the same weight. I saw myself the way I once looked at my own father right before I stopped forgiving him. When he spoke again, it was soft, but certain. Maybe I'm turning into you. I let the words settle the way you let pain find its place before it fades. Maybe I said, but you still have time to turn away. He nodded, eyes fixed on the harbor where faint lights glimmered through the storm. The waitress left the check on the table and didn't wait for it to be paid. When we finally stood, the booth creaked and the cold air rushed in through the door. Outside, the snow muffled the city. It was quiet, almost holy. He pulled his coat tighter. I'll fix it, he said, not as a promise but a sentence. I didn't answer. Some truths don't need to be spoken twice. He turned and walked toward his car. I watched his shape fade into the white one step, then another, until he was gone. I stood there longer than I should have, my breath rising in thin clouds. Inside the diner, lights glowed against the falling snow, warm and soft, like forgiveness waiting at a distance. Through the glass, I caught my reflection. Older-lined, but still carrying the same sins. And for a brief moment in the light of that window, I saw Ethan's face overlap mine. The resemblance wasn't just in bone or age, it was in the silence. I turned away, brushed the snow off my coat, and walked back to the truck. The wind carried the faint sound of water breaking against the docks. I started the engine and looked once more at the diner before pulling into the road. Tomorrow, I would call Raymond. But for now, I let the snow fall and the city fade. The world gone quiet, except for the sound of my own breathing. Somewhere behind me, that diner window still glowed, and for a fleeting second it looked like mercy. By morning, the storm had passed. The streets in Chicago glittered with a thin coat of ice, and the city felt quieter than usual, as if holding its breath. I parked near the loop in front of the building where Raymond kept his office. The glass walls caught no sunlight, only the pale reflection of winter sky. Raymond met me by the elevator, holding a folder that looked too thin for the trouble it carried. His handshake was steady, his eyes less so. We didn't bother with small talk. Inside, the heat was too high, and the hum of the vents filled the silence as he spread the papers across his desk. Financial summaries, time-stamped transfers, compliance reports. Each page bore the name Halford Foundation at the top, printed neatly above a mess of numbers. He pointed to one sheet. Electronic transfers signed under Claire Halford's credentials. But the authorizing account was Ethan's. The words didn't fully register at first. Only when I saw the initials C.H. On the screen did I feel something shift inside me. Raymond leaned forward. Claire's already been subpoenaed by the Attorney General's Charitable Trust Bureau. They think funds were redirected under false authorization. If Ethan approved those transfers, it's a breach of fiduciary duty. That's criminal. His tone stayed measured, but I could see the weight behind his words. She didn't do it, I said. Intent doesn't matter here, John. The records do. I watched the city outside his window, the way people hurried through the cold with their collars up, each one, carrying something they'd rather not explain. What about Ethan? I asked. He's not charged yet, but he's on their radar. They'll look at digital activity cross-match IP logs. Once they connect his signature, this stops being an audit. I rubbed my hands together, the heat from the vent doing nothing for the chill that spread through me. Raymond shut the folder. You can't fix this quietly, he said. You've been here before. You know how these storms end. I left without answering. The sun was already setting when I reached the lake house. The horizon was gold over the frozen water, the air sharp with cold. I poured myself a bourbon and sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where Linda once balanced our accounts. The same table where we argued about truth and reputation and what it meant to be decent in a world that didn't reward it. I remembered Ethan sitting on this very counter when he was 10, tracing the outline of a dollar bill against the light, and asking me why money had to have faces on it. I told him it was about trust. I didn't realize how wrong that answer would become. The memory faded as headlights swept across the window. Ethan came in without knocking. Snow still clung to his coat. He stood in the doorway, quiet eyes red from more than the cold. You saw Raymond. I nodded. He sat across from me. His hands were shaking slightly as he pulled a small envelope from his pocket. Inside were photocopies of transfer reports, marked and highlighted. I signed them, he said. His voice was low, almost careful. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. I didn't speak. The grants were freezing donors pulling out. Claire was handling the trust fund for her own projects, so I used her account. I just moved the money to cover temporary gaps. Did she know? No. I used her authorization. He paused. It was supposed to be clean, just a patch, until the board stabilized. You forged your sister's name. He met my eyes. I did it for the foundation. For what you built. I turned away. The reflection in the window showed two men sitting at the same table, both guilty for different reasons. You think this was about saving something. It was about control, about not wanting to be the one who failed. He said nothing. I walked to the counter and poured another drink, watching the liquid catch the light. You didn't inherit my money, Ethan. You inherited my mistakes. He looked up, eyes wet, jaw locked. I wanted to make it right before it fell apart. That's what I told myself, too. Back then. He understood what I meant. He didn't need to ask. The room went quiet, except for the faint ticking of the old clock Linda had kept above the sink. It had stopped once years ago, the night she died. I'd never had the heart to replace it. He stood after a moment. I'll talk to Claire. She deserves the truth from you, I said. And from you, he replied. His voice was calm, but something in it trembled. He left without looking back. I stayed there for a long time, listening to the silence press against the walls. The bourbon glass had started to tremble slightly in my hand, though I wasn't cold. In the window, I could almost see Linda standing beside me. Her reflection was faint, her expression soft, but unyielding. She had warned me once that silence breeds its own kind of violence, the slow kind, the kind that eats through generations. I spoke her name under my breath. Then Claire's. Outside, the lake cracked under the ice, a long, deep sound that echoed across the shore. I stood there watching the frozen water shift under the moonlight, knowing what that sound meant. Something beneath the surface was breaking, and it was only a matter of time before it rose. The sound of ice cracking on the lake stayed with me through the night. Each shift in the frozen water echoed through the walls like the memory of something breaking that could not be fixed. Morning came gray and soundless. The light had no warmth, only weight. I was at the sink when Ethan's car appeared at the edge of the drive. He moved slowly, his shoulders bent forward, a black folder pressed to his chest like it might steady him. When he stepped inside, the smell of cold air came with him. He didn't take off his coat. "We need to talk," he said. He laid the folder on the table. Inside were printed forms, notarized statements, an affidavit drafted by Raymond. Each line was clean, legal, merciless. "If you sign this," he said, "it transfers responsibility for the compliance violations back to you as founder. The board clears me, and Claire's hearing stays administrative." I stared at the papers, tracing the ink with my finger. "You're asking me to lie under oath." He shook his head slowly. "I'm asking you to protect what's left of us." He sat across from me, his face pale in the winter light. The veins at his temple pulsed like small rivers trying to remember their way home. "Mom once protected you, didn't she?" The words came quiet but sharp, like something rehearsed too many times. My hand tightened on the table. "You don't know what that cost her." He didn't back down. "She did it anyway." The silence stretched until it filled the whole room. I could hear the refrigerator hum, the clock ticking above the sink, steady and cruel. Linda's clock. I turned toward the window. The glass caught our reflections, two men sitting across from each other, bound by a legacy neither could claim as clean. "Claire's name came up again," I said. "She didn't deserve this." Ethan's voice trembled. "She'll lose custody of her daughter if no one steps forward." "That's the truth." "The truth," I repeated, feeling the word twist in my throat. "You're asking me to bury one truth to save another." He looked down. Sometimes that's what families do. I wanted to shout, but the anger didn't rise. It just sat there, cold and old. You think I don't remember what your mother did, I said. She lied for me. I let her, and it broke her in ways you never saw. He leaned forward. Then maybe it's your turn to make it right. I stood, walked to the counter, poured a glass of bourbon, though it wasn't even noon. The smell filled the air like regret. If I do this, I lose everything left of my name. He looked at me carefully. That name doesn't mean what you think it does anymore. I faced him again. When did you start believing that damage could be inherited? When I saw how much of you I'd become, he said. The words landed hard. He didn't mean them to hurt, but they did. I studied him. His jawline, his eyes, the way he tapped the table when he was nervous. I used to do that when thinking through an argument. Without knowing it, he was mirroring me. I said quietly, "If we go down this road, we let the truth lead, not fear." He nodded. "Then let's finish this together." He gathered the papers back into the folder, aligning the corners with care, a habit he must have learned from Linda. His hands shook only once. Outside, the wind picked up, pulling snow off the roof in slow, spiraling sheets. It sounded like breath, or maybe the world exhaling after too long holding back. Ethan paused at the door. "Dad," he said, "do you ever think she'd forgive either of us?" Forgiveness was never what she wanted, I told him. She believed in redemption, and they aren't the same thing. He nodded once, not as agreement, but as understanding. Then he left. I sat there long after the sound of his car faded. The clock kept ticking. The bourbon glass sat half full, untouched now. I reached for the papers he'd left behind. The affidavit lay on top, waiting for a signature that could rewrite everything or end it for good. In the reflection of the window, I saw myself again, a man who once thought honor was about protecting a name. Now it looked more like telling the truth, even when it stripped everything else away. The wind howled across the frozen lake, rattling the glass. I looked toward Linda's picture on the wall, and for a second I could almost hear her voice in the sound of it. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the reflection in the window was still there, older, quieter, but not afraid. Just ready. The house was still the kind of stillness that carries its own sound. The heating clicked once, then went quiet again. On the table lay the folder Ethan had left behind, its edges lifting slightly with the draft from the window. I didn't open it. I just watched it, as if the paper itself might breathe and tell me what waited inside. When the knock came, it wasn't loud. It was careful, respectful. Raymond stood there with a gray lockbox under his arm, snow melting into his coat collar. He looked like a man who had been carrying someone else's secret for too long. He came in, unbuttoned his coat, and set the box down gently. "Linda gave me this before she got sick," he said. "She told me to keep it until you were ready." The words hung there. Ready. I wasn't sure I had ever been that. He opened the box with a soft click and handed me a sealed envelope. My name was written on it in her handwriting, steady and exact. Inside were documents, neat and layered, a private trust. Linda's trust. It was legitimate, funded through an investment she'd made after '89. She had taken something clean and used it to bury what was dirty. That same trust had become the seed for the Halford Foundation, the very thing now under investigation. I stared at the papers until the numbers blurred. Raymond's voice cut through the haze. "This could save them if you bring it forward yourself. It proves intent to make amends. And if I don't," I asked, Then the law decides what you meant, and they won't be kind. I nodded slowly. His face was calm, but his voice wasn't. It wavered just enough to show he cared more than a lawyer should. "Does it save Claire?" I asked. Maybe he said, "It changes the story." That can be enough. I folded the papers carefully and placed them back inside. In the reflection on the window, I thought I saw Linda standing behind me, not smiling, not angry, just patient like she always was when she knew I was about to make something harder than it needed to be. I told Raymond I needed to drive. The highway was empty gray lines disappearing under the tires. The fields were still frozen, and the sky hung low and colorless. I stopped for gas and a coffee that tasted like iron and smoke. Somewhere between the border and Kansas, I thought of Ethan. His face when he said we finish this together. The way his eyes had stopped looking at me like a son's and started looking like a man's. By the time I reached Claire's house, the day had gone thin. The porch light was on. I sat in the truck until the engine went cold, then walked to the door and knocked. She opened it like she'd been expecting me, though she hadn't. We stood in her kitchen. It was small and neat, the kind of place that felt lived in, not designed. A drawing hung crooked on the fridge. A little girl's hand had written the word home in uneven letters. I told her everything. The trust, the foundation, the money, the mistake that had built the whole thing. I didn't try to sound noble. I just wanted to sound honest. She listened quietly, her hands resting on the table. When I finished, she said, "You didn't just hide me, Dad. You hid the best part of yourself." Her voice didn't shake. "Mine did." She went on. "I can't lose my daughter. If they convict me, they'll take her." "You won't," I said. "I'll fix this." "How?" she asked, and her voice cracked on that single word. By finally doing the right thing, I told her, the way I should have when it mattered. She nodded once, like she believed me but didn't know how much belief was worth. When I left, it had started to rain. It wasn't a heavy rain, just steady, insistent. The kind that doesn't drown you, just keeps reminding you you're alive. I drove north headlights, cutting through the wet dark. At a rest stop, I parked under a flickering lamp and thought of Ethan again, of how he'd sounded when I told him to come home. That small, sure voice saying I'm already on my way. The rain picked up. I let the car idle, letting the sound fill the space Linda once filled. Her reflection flickered in the windshield, faint but familiar. I whispered her name, and for a moment I thought she might answer. By the time I reached the lake house, the storm had followed me. I carried the box inside the metal cold against my hands. I set it on the table next to the bourbon I didn't drink. I made a note for myself. On a plain card, call Raymond. File voluntary disclosure. Prepare sworn statement. I stood there in the quiet and watched the glass fog with my breath. The lake outside was a dark mirror. In it, I could almost see Ethan walking up the drive, the headlights stretching his shadow across the snow. The house creaked once, then settled. I took the clock off the wall and turned the minute hand forward by 1, not to erase time, just to mark that something had changed. The ticking filled the room again, steady human. I sat down and waited for my son to come home. Morning came gray and quiet, the lake wrapped in fog like it was holding its breath. I hadn't slept. The clock ticked all night, steady, accusing. When I stepped outside, the air was sharp and still, the kind that bites your lungs. Ethan's car was already there. He sat behind the wheel with the engine off, staring at the lake. When he saw me, he nodded once, then started the car. We didn't talk on the drive. The tires hummed against the wet pavement, and every mile felt like a question neither of us was ready to ask. When the skyline appeared pale against the morning light, I thought of how many times I'd driven this same road, thinking I could fix the past before it caught up. Raymond's office was quiet, too quiet for what we were about to do. The city noise below sounded distant, muffled, like it belonged to another world. Claire was already there. She looked tired but composed. Her hands folded over a manila folder that probably held the same fears I carried in my chest. Raymond greeted us with a nod and pointed to the table. The overhead light flickered once before steadying. For a while, none of us spoke. Then I said what needed to be said. We tell the truth, no deals, no silence. Ethan's shoulders tensed. Claire turned her face away, a tear escaping before she could stop it. Raymond's pen froze above the page. You don't have to ruin your name again. Ethan said, his voice low, almost pleading. That name was never clean, I answered. But it can still mean something. He looked down. His jaw clenched the same way mine used to when I was cornered by my own mistakes. Claire's voice trembled. What happens to us if you do this? I met her eyes. What happens if I don't? She said nothing. The air in the room grew heavier, pressing down until all that was left was the sound of breathing. Raymond cleared his throat. The Attorney General's office is willing to resolve this through a civil consent decree. You'll disclose the full history, dissolve the foundation voluntarily. There will be no criminal charges, but the name Halford will be stripped from all public work. I nodded slowly. Then do it. Raymond hesitated. John, once you sign this, there's no going back. That's why we're here, I said. He slid the papers across the table. My hand hovered above them for a moment. Ethan shifted beside me, his fingers tapping the edge of the table like he wanted to stop me, but didn't know how. I picked up the pen. The ink bled slow and clean onto the paper. Each signature felt like a confession I should have made decades ago. When I finished, I set the pen down and pushed the folder toward Raymond. Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. His voice shook a little. Mom wanted you to have this. I took at the paper, soft and worn. Linda's handwriting was neat and careful, the way she always wrote when something mattered. Inside was a short note. When the truth finds you again, don't fight it. Let it speak for you. Her words landed quietly, but they broke something open inside me. I folded the letter and held it for a moment before setting it beside the signed pages. Ethan's voice was almost a whisper. Do you think this fixes it? No, I said. It stops it from spreading. Claire exhaled slowly, her hands trembling in her lap. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time, not as the man who'd failed her, but as one who finally stood still. Raymond began sorting the papers. His movements were careful, deliberate. The sound of the pages sliding into the envelope filled the room. Then he said quietly, The Attorney General's team will need confirmation by noon. Once I send this, it's done. Send it, I said, but keep her name. Raymond paused, then nodded. His eyes softened. He understood. We stood together. The chairs scraped softly against the floor. Ethan helped Claire with her coat, his hands shaking only once before he steadied them. When he turned back to me, his eyes were wet. You sure you're ready for this? He asked. No one's ever ready, I said. But it's time. We left the office. The city met us with wind and noise and a kind of strange mercy. Traffic moved, people hurried, the world carried on without noticing three people who had just undone decades of silence. Claire walked ahead toward her car. Ethan and I stood by the curb. The sunlight broke through the clouds for a brief second, turning the wet pavement into glass. He said, You think Mom planned this? Maybe she just knew it would come back around, I answered. He gave a small laugh. It wasn't joy, but it wasn't bitterness either. Something in between. We started walking. The wind off the lake carried that faint smell of iron and salt, the scent of truth when it finally comes clean. Behind us, through the glass of Raymond's office, I saw him lift the folder and walk it to the courier box. He didn't look back. We reached the car and stopped. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Ethan looked at me. "So what now?" "Now we wait," I said, "for the truth to do what it does." He nodded, his breath visible in the cold air. The light shifted again, brushing across his face, and for the first time I saw something settled there. Not anger, not shame, just peace. He turned toward the car. I glanced at the glass building behind us and caught our reflection. Two men standing side by side, the same height now, the same weight in their shoulders. And for the first time in years, I didn't see a boy anymore. Only a man walking beside me, and the quiet sound of the world finally letting us go. The courthouse smelled of old wood and rain. Morning light filtered through tall windows, pale and cautious, like it wasn't sure it wanted to witness what was about to happen. I sat behind the council table, the weight of the last 30 years pressed into the silence between breaths. Ethan sat 2 seats away. His fingers intertwined his knee, bouncing once before he stilled it. Claire sat across the aisle, her coat folded neatly on her lap. None of us spoke. The judge entered his black robe, moving like a shadow across the room. The sound of the gavel cracked the air once, then everything fell quiet again. Raymond leaned toward me and whispered that the deal was done. The Attorney General had approved the consent decree overnight. The foundation would be dissolved, no criminal charges filed, no further appeal. I didn't answer. I watched the judge read through the ruling, each word landing heavy but inevitable. When he finished, the sound of his voice lingered, an echo that faded into the rustle of papers and chairs. It was over. Ethan exhaled, his shoulders lowering for the first time in months. He turned to me, eyes red from sleeplessness, and said softly, "You once told me justice is what remains after everything else is gone. I finally get it." I nodded, but didn't speak. The words were already complete in the air between us. Outside, the sky hung low and gray over Chicago. Reporters waited by the steps, their umbrellas like dark flowers opening in the wind. Raymond spoke to them. His voice measured and careful, while Ethan and I stood a few feet away. One of the reporters turned a microphone toward me and asked if I had anything to say. Sometimes you don't win by clearing your name. You win by standing still. The microphones lowered. The crowd shifted. No one said another word. We left the courthouse without looking back. The rain had lightened to a mist thin enough to breathe. A taxi slowed near the curb, and I caught a faint reflection in the window. Linda's smile, soft and distant, the kind that made me feel both forgiven and not. Ethan followed beside me, hands in his pockets, head down. When we reached the corner, he stopped. His voice was quiet, almost swallowed by the sound of passing cars. What happens now? Now we live with it. That's how justice works. He nodded, eyes glistening not from tears, but from the kind of exhaustion that comes after truth. We found a diner nearby, one of those places that never changes. The kind with chrome counters and coffee that's been brewing since dawn. The waitress didn't ask for our order, just filled 2 mugs and left the pot on the table. The steam rose between us, carrying that familiar scent of burnt beans and something almost comforting. Ethan stared at his coffee, his hand trembling slightly before he steadied it against the cup. He looked up. You think Mom saw this coming? She always did, I said. She knew where the truth would land, even when I didn't. He smiled faintly, the kind that hurt a little to see. Do you think she'd forgive us? Forgiveness isn't something you earn, I said. It's something you stop running from. We sat there in the quiet, the sound of rain returning against the window. The world outside moved at its own rhythm, unbothered by what we'd lost. Claire walked in a few minutes later. Her coat was damp, her eyes tired but clear. She didn't sit right away. They called, she said. It's done. They accepted everything. I keep custody. Ethan reached out and touched her hand. She didn't pull away this time. I'm glad, I said. She looked at me, her voice soft but steady. You did what Mom would have done. Maybe I answered, or maybe I finally did what I should have done a long time ago. She gave a small nod, then smiled a sad, beautiful kind of smile that felt like closure. When she left, the bell over the door chimed gently. The sound lingered in the air even after the door shut behind her. Ethan and I stayed for a while, not speaking. The coffee grew cold. Outside, the streetlights reflected off puddles, turning the pavement into streaks of silver. He finally looked at me. So this is justice. It's quieter than I thought. That's how you know it's real. We finished our coffee in silence. When we stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The air was clean, cool, and strangely light. The courthouse loomed a few blocks away, empty now, its steps glistening under the streetlights. As we walked toward the river, Ethan slowed his pace. His hand brushed against mine for a moment, just long enough for me to feel the tremor he didn't hide anymore. Then he looked at me, not as a son asking for guidance, but as a man standing beside another man who'd finally told the truth. For a long second, neither of us moved. Then he nodded once, a silent acknowledgement that said more than any apology could. We crossed the bridge. The city lights shimmered on the water below, breaking and reforming with every ripple. I looked down and saw our reflections merging and separating like pieces of the same story finally coming to rest. The wind shifted, carrying the faint hum of traffic, and something else, peace, maybe. The kind that comes when there's nothing left to hide. The taxi arrived. Ethan opened the door and waited. Before I stepped in, I looked back toward the courthouse one last time. The flag above it stirred slightly in the wind, a whisper against the gray sky. Inside the cab, Ethan leaned his head against the window, eyes closed. The city slid past in soft motion, light and shadow mixing on his face. My phone buzzed once, a message from Claire. The truth didn't fix us, but it stopped the bleeding. I read it twice, then put the phone away. Outside, the lake stretched endless and calm, its surface catching the first faint break of sunlight. The driver hummed an old tune, low and gentle, the kind you only hear when a storm has passed. And as the city fell away behind us, I realized something simple and final. Some losses are the only honest way left to win. The road north was quiet that morning. The sky held the soft blue of early fall, the kind that promised neither warmth nor cold, only the in-between stillness of change. I kept the window cracked, letting in the sound of the wind and the faint rhythm of tires against asphalt. The lake stretched beside me, calm, endless light moving across its surface like a slow breath. It had been a year since the hearing. The papers had stopped calling. The name Halford no longer appeared in headlines or boardrooms. What was left was quieter, smaller, truer. I had learned that peace doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in fragments often when no one's watching. Ethan called a week ago. His voice carried a steadiness I hadn't heard before. He said he'd built something, a small place just outside Madison. I should come see, that was all. The building stood at the edge of a field, brick and tin, with wide windows that caught the afternoon light. The sign above the door read, "The Linda Project," white letters on faded blue wood. No Halford. Only her name, clean and final. Inside, the air smelled of oil pine and something human effort, maybe. The sound of tools filled the space, clinking and scraping in rhythm. A radio played softly in the background, an old Springsteen song nearly swallowed by the noise of work. Veterans moved through the shop sleeves, rolled-up eyes focused. Ethan stood among them, explaining something about an engine, his hands moving with quiet certainty. He caught sight of me in the doorway and smiled, not surprised, not nervous, just present. When he walked over, I noticed a streak of grease on his wrist, a small frustration in his sigh as he wiped it away. It was the kind of imperfection that made him real, not a symbol. We didn't speak right away. I followed him outside, where the lake shimmered gold beneath the soft light. We sat on a weathered bench that faced the water. The wind carried the sound of the shop metal laughter life. After a while, he said, "You once told me forgiveness is a weight we set down." I think I finally did. I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw no trace of the boy who once demanded answers. Before me sat a man who understood that some questions don't need them. I said, "The proudest day of my life wasn't when you succeeded. It was when I stopped seeing myself in you." He smiled, slow and quiet. It wasn't pride or relief, just understanding. We talked about Claire then. I told him she was doing well, her daughter in school, her laughter finding its way back into her voice. He listened, his eyes soft, and said that was good. Nothing more needed to be said. The light began to fade, turning the lake into glass. Ethan stood and brushed the dust from his jeans. He said he had another class starting soon, and I told him I'd stay a while. He nodded, then walked back toward the workshop. For a moment, I just watched him. His movements were calm, his shoulders sure the rhythm of a man who'd stopped fighting his reflection. When he disappeared inside, I turned back to the lake. The air had cooled, the kind that touches your skin and reminds you that time moves on even when you don't. I reached into my coat pocket and felt the small watch Linda used to keep by our bed. It still ticked faintly, steady as breath. I held it in my hand, listening to its quiet persistence. It sounded almost like the water against the shore, the heartbeat of something that refused to end. A father doesn't need forgiveness to be loved. Only the courage to see his son as a man. The thought came to me softly, without ache, without pride. Just truth. The sun sank lower, washing the lake in amber light. The waves moved lazily, brushing the shore, as if the world was whispering its last word for the day. Behind me, I heard the faint echo of a door closing, then laughter, Ethan's voice, strong and certain. I stayed until the last light slipped below the trees, until the watch in my hand became the only sound left. Then I stood, dusted off my coat, and looked once more toward the building. The sign above the door caught what little light remained. The Linda Project. Her name, his purpose, our peace. I walked back to the car, the gravel crunching underfoot, the air cool and forgiving. When I reached for the door, I paused and looked out over the horizon. The lake was still. The sky held that last thin line of gold before the dark. For the first time in years, I didn't think about what had been lost, only what had been carried forward. I took a long breath, started the engine, and let the headlights cut a path through the fading light. Somewhere behind me, the lake whispered against the shore, the steady pulse of time moving on. And in that quiet, I understood what Linda meant when she wrote, "Let the truth speak for you." It had, and it spoke in the sound of water, in the weight I no longer carried, and in the man my son had become.